Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare,
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Bhaja Shri Krishna Chaitanya, Prabhu Nityananda, Shri Advaita Gadadhara, Srivasadi Gaur Bhakta-vrinda.
Bhaja Shri Krishna Chaitanya, Prabhu Nityananda, Shri Advaita Gadadhara, Srivasadi Gaur Bhakta-vrinda.
Bhaja Shri Krishna Chaitanya, Prabhu Nityananda, Shri Advaita Gadadhara, Srivasadi Gaur Bhakta-vrinda.
Bhaja Shri Krishna Chaitanya, Prabhu Nityananda, Shri Advaita Gadadhara, Srivasadi Gaur Bhakta-vrinda.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, dear devotees, please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Welcome to this morning's class. It's from Chaitanya Charitamrita, Adi Lila, chapter 7, and text number 5. We're very fortunate to have His Grace Vishnugada Prabhu from ISKCON, Philadelphia, to give a class. Hare Krishna. Prabhu.
Hare Krishna, Vancha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhye Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Hare Krishna.
Hare
Thank
Krishna.
you, Parikshit Prabhu. Nice to see you this morning.
Hare Krishna. Nice to see you too. Hare Krishna.
And if devotees can, if they're in a position where they can, it might be a good idea to unmute. So we could actually have a call and response kirtan. I know in the beginning of the pandemic, when Zoom became more utilized, it was recommended to mute yourself during the kirtan at the beginning of the class, because things aren't, when the kirtan goes on over Zoom, it's not always in sync. But there's also the statement, a blind uncle is better than no uncle. So we get so few opportunities to do kirtan that taking advantage of this back and forth kirtan, if you can, unmute yourself, it's very nice. Just singing by oneself isn't as good as kirtan when you chant together.
Hare Krishna.
Okay. Parama Karuna Bodhvijana Nitai Gaurachandra
Parama Karuna Pahujana Nitai Gaura Chanda.
Parama Karuna Bodhvijana Nitai Gaurachandra
Parama karuna pahudvijana nitai gora chanda.
Sab avatar Shar Shiramani Kebala Ananda Kanda
Sab avatar sa shiromani
Shiramani Kebala
kevala ananda kanda.
Bhaja Bhaja Bhai Chaitanya Nitai Sudridha Vishwasha Kari
Bhajo bhajo bhai Chaitanya Nitai Sudhita Vishwa Sukuri.
Vishaya Chadiya Sera Se Majia Mukhe Bolo Hari Hari
Vishaya chadiya sera se majia mukhe bolo hari hari.
Dekha Ore Bhai Bhuvane Nai Emona Doyala Data
Eko ore bai tribhuvane nai emonado yala data.
Pashupaki Jure Pashana Vidare Shuni Jar Gata
Ashupakudire pasana vidare suni janra gunagata.
Sangsare Majia Rokhili Podia Se Pode Nohilo Asha
Samsare Matia Ruhili Poria Sipadina Hilo Asha.
Apana Karama Bhunjaye Shamana Kahaye Lochandasa
Apana Karama Punjai Shamana Kahuilu Chanadasa.
Parama Karuna Paho Dvijana Nitai Gaurachandra
Parama Karuna Pahudu Ijana Nitai Gora Chandra.
Parama Karuna Paho Dvijana Nitai Gaurachandra
Parama Karuna Pahudu Ijana Nitai Gora Chandra.
Shabavatar Shar Shiramani Kebala Ananda Kanda
Sab Avatar Sashiromani Kevala Ananda Kanda.
Jai Om Vishnu Pad Paramahansa Paribrajak Acharya Ashtotara Sata Shri Srimad His Divine Grace A.C. Bhakti Vedanta Shami Maharaj Prabhupada Ki Jai
Jai,
Ananta Koti Vaishnavrind Ki Jai
Jai,
ISKCON founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai
Jai,
Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai
Jai,
प्रेम से कहो श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर शिवासारि गौर भक्तवृंद की जय
Jai,
श्री श्री राधा कृष्ण गोप गोपीनाथ श्याम कुंद राधा कुंद गिरि गोवर्धन की जय
Jai,
वृंदावन धाम की जय
Jai,
नवद्वीप मायापुर धाम की जय
Jai,
गंगा माई की जय
Jai,
यमुना माई की जय
Jai,
तुलसी देवी की जय
Jai,
भक्ति देवी की जय
Jai,
ब्रह्मवेता भक्तवृंद की जय
Jai.
गौ प्रेमानंदे
Hari Hari Bol.
All glories to the assembled devotees.
Hare Krishna.
All glories to the assembled devotees.
Hare Krishna.
All glories to the assembled devotees.
Hare Krishna.
All glory to Sri Sri Guru and Sri Gauranga Hari Hari Bol. Nama Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Prishtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Shami Itanamane Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharini Nirbhishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarina Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
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 We're reading and discussing Chaitanya Charitamrita Adi Lila, 7th chapter. The title is Lord Chaitanya in 5 features. And we're on text number 5 of 5 features. Pañca-tattva eka-vastu nāhi kichu bheda rasa āsvādite tabu vividha vibheda. Looking at the synonyms, we have pañca-tattva, the 5 subjects. Eka-vastu, they are 1 in 5. Nāhi, there is not. Kichu, anything. Bheda, difference. Rasa, mellows. āsvādite, to taste. Tabu, yet. Vividha, varieties. Vibheda, differences. Translation. Spiritually, there are no differences between these 5 tattvas. For on the transcendental platform, everything is absolute. Yet, there are also varieties in the spiritual world. And in order to taste these spiritual varieties, one should distinguish between them. Purport. In his Anubhashya commentary, Sri Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur describes the Pañca-tattva as follows. The supreme energetic, the personality of Godhead, manifesting in order to enjoy 5 kinds of pastimes, appears as the members of the pañca-tattva. Actually, there is no difference between them because they are situated on the absolute platform. But they manifest different spiritual varieties as a challenge to the impersonalists to taste different kinds of spiritual humors, rasas. In the Vedas, it is said, Parasya Shaktir Vividhaiva Shruyate. The varieties of energy of the Supreme Personality of Godhead are differently known. From this statement of the Vedas, one can understand that there are eternal varieties of humors or tastes in the spiritual world. Sri Gauranga, Sri Nityananda, Sri Advaita, Sri Gadadhara, and Srivas Thakur are all on the same platform. But in spiritually distinguishing between them, one should understand that Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is the form of a devotee. Nityananda Prabhu appears in the form of a devotee's spiritual master. Advaita Prabhu is the form of a bhakta, devotee incarnation. Gadadhar Prabhu is the energy of a bhakta. And Srivas Thakur is a pure devotee. Thus, there are spiritual distinctions between them. The Bhakta Rupa, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, the Bhakta Svarup, Sri Nityananda Prabhu, and the Bhakta Avatar, Sri Advaita Prabhu, are described as the Supreme Personality of Godhead Himself, His immediate manifestation, and His plenary expansion. And they all belong to the Vishnu category. Although the spiritual and marginal energies of the Supreme Personality of Godhead are none different from the Supreme Personality of Godhead Vishnu, they are predominated subjects, whereas Lord Vishnu is the predominator. As such, although they are on the same platform, they have appeared differently in order to facilitate tasting of transcendental mellows. Actually, however, there is no possibility of one being different from the other, for the worshipper and the worshipable cannot be separated at any stage. On the absolute platform, one cannot be understood without the other. Om Gyanati Mirandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Jena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namah Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Shayam Rupa Gadamaikam Dadati Shapandantikam Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Bhashadi Gaur Bhakta Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Before speaking, I'd like to ask the permission and blessings of all devotees, and particularly those who are maybe senior by age or advancement in Krishna consciousness.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Let's look at the words of the, if you don't mind, bring it up a little bit and look at this. Yeah. So we have pañca-tattva in this verse. Pañca-tattva. Tattva means, in this case, subjects. Also, it could be translated truths. 5 truths. Pancha is 5. Eka-vastu. They are 1 in 5. Nāhi, there is not. Kichu, anything. Bheda. You know that word bheda?
Yeah.
Lord Chaitanya's philosophy, the different philosophies of the Vaishnava Sampradayas, and Lord Chaitanya's philosophy is called Achintya Bhed, same word, Bhed. Achintya Bhed Abhed Tattva. Achintya means inconceivable. Bhed is difference, and Abhed means no difference. Rasa, mellows, āsvādite, to taste. In the Guru Vastakam prayer, you'll find that word āsvādana, and also in the Prasadam prayer, āsvāda, it's very āsvādite, to taste. Tabu, yet vividha, varieties, vibheda, and differences. Bheda and vibheda here, or abheda, differences. So this is, as mentioned, inconceivable, because in the our ordinary experience, if something is the same, it's not different, and if something is different, it's not the same. Do you follow?
Yeah.
So here it's being said that they're 1 and also different. So Lord Chaitanya's philosophy of Achintya Bhed Abhed Tattva applies here. Usually we apply that analogy of Bhed Abhed to the consideration of the Lord, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and the living entities. The living entities being 1 with and different than God. 1 in quality, but different in quantity. Or the very commonly used example is the difference between the sun and the sunshine, or the identity of the sun and the sunshine. The energy of the sun and the sun, in one sense, are the same, but still they're different. So this analogy that Srila Prabhupada often gives about how to understand the idea of oneness and difference is usually applied in that environment, or that with that idea in mind, the difference between the Supreme Personality of Godhead and the individual jivas like you and me. But the same principle also applies here. In the spiritual world, there's also varieties, although they're on the same transcendental platform. Even in the material world, when you say that somebody has an identical twin, are they identical in all respects?
No.
No. There's some differences. They're not every little thing the same. Well, similarly, in the pañca-tattva, they're all one on the transcendental level, but there are differences, varieties within the oneness. In the impersonal feature of the absolute truth, the oneness is without variety in the Brahma Jyoti. But in the transcendental world, beyond the Brahma Jyoti, in the Vaikuntha planets, and also in Goloka Vrindavan, where Lord Krishna and Lord Chaitanya and their associates are living fully always, there's transcendental variety in terms of forms, pastimes, qualities, and tastes of between Lord Krishna, his expansions, his energy, and his devotees. So this is sometimes it's mind-boggling, and people in general, even from a Indian or Hindu background, they get this mixed up because we'll say that God is one. God is one. So, but then if God is one, how can you be worshiping many gods? You'll worship Krishna, you'll worship Ramchandra, you'll worship Vishnugada, you'll worship Jagannath, all these. So this is confusing to a person who doesn't have a good base, a good instruction from a bona fide spiritual master. And as a result, quite often, to grasp that, they want to make all those differences nil. And they're all one means the different personalities are not important. There's something beyond those personalities that is consistent and is one. Vaishnava philosophers, Lord Chaitanya, the Parampara, Srila Prabhupada, though, goes further and understands and expresses that the oneness that we're talking about here is oneness in quality, in being, but still within the oneness, there are varieties. And the pañca-tattva is a very good example of this truth. Five varieties within one truth, pañca-tattva. 3 are predominating and 2 are predominated, although they're all on the transcendental platform. Lord Chaitanya, Nityananda Prabhu, and Advaita Prabhu are all Vishnugada, transcendental platform. Gadadhar Pandit and the Shaktis, other Shaktis, and Srivas Thakur and other devotees are on the predominated category. The servants of Lord Chaitanya and Lord Nityananda. So it's the predominator, and the predominated, even within these 5 groups. So there's different ways of looking at that. Any questions or comments or observations on this point?
It surprised me a little bit, even though it was explained later when pañca-tattva was divided into 3 being predominators and 2 being predominated. But then later on, I saw, well, it makes sense. Gadadhar and Shivas to being the predominated category.
Yes.
Shivas sometimes he said he's a personification of the marginal potency of the Lord. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Yes.
Yeah. Maybe you can expand on it a little bit, because there are people who are fairly new who don't know what marginal means, who are on there now. So if you can explain that, I'm sure they'll appreciate it.
Sure. Oh my. Like margin means they're in sometimes influenced or under the control of the spiritual energy, and sometimes under the control of the material energy. Prabhupada gives the example, just like the beach, according to the tide, the period of tide, sometimes a certain portion of the beach is covered and sometimes it's not covered. So similarly, sometimes, so another the Sanskrit word for marginal energy is tatasta, tatasta shakti. Tatasta means like a beach, like a shore, sometimes covered, sometimes not covered. But in this case, with Srivas Thakur, although he is of that energy, he's not covered. He's an eternally liberated soul, and everyone has the potency, the possibility to be covered or not covered according to their consciousness and service, who they're serving. Sometimes among us, many of us, we'll call it eternally conditioned souls. Eternally conditioned doesn't mean that we've always been conditioned, but it means, according to Srila Prabhupada, that the time when we became covered by ignorance was so long ago, it's very difficult to trace out. So in that sense, we're eternally conditioned. And an eternally conditioned soul can become an eternally liberated soul. And the example is Narad Muni, of whom Srivas Thakur is the incarnation of Narad Muni. So even though he is a tatashta shakti, or a marginal energy, by his firm attachment to the devotional service of the Lord, he is immune from becoming covered with the material energy. Questions, comments?
Thank you very much. I want to follow up on this. So when
Yes.
you were giving the example from Srila Prabhupada about the ocean, sometimes covered and not covered, what I was picturing was like the shore of the ocean based on the tide. Sometimes the water comes and covers a larger area of the shore, and sometimes a smaller area of the shore. Was that the
Yes.
implication?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. Just wanted to make sure about that. Thank you very much. Any other questions?
This it reminds us of the prayer by Lord Brahma in the Brahma Samhita. He says, Advaitam Achyutam Anadim Anantarupam. On one hand, Advaita means he's one, not different. Dvaita means different, and Advaita means he's one. Advaitam, Achyutam, never falls down. Anadi, beginningless. Anantarupam, but he has unlimited forms. So God is one, but has unlimited forms. And we have to, and here, the different aspects of those forms are being described. This is the science of God. It's not, it's a little mind-boggling, but if you stick with it, then it becomes clear by continuing to hear and consider and to meditate on these truths that are being presented here by Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami and Srila Prabhupada.
Yes.
one thing about the purport, it says that Srila Bhaktisiddhanta describes them in his Anubhashya. Anubhashya means his commentary following Anu. Anu means following. So he's following the purport or the commentary given by his preceptor, Bhaktivinoda Thakur, which was his commentary on Chaitanya Charitamrita was called Amrita Pravaha Bhashya. Bhashya means commentary. So Bhaktivinoda Thakur commented Amrita Pravaha Bhashya, and Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur commented Anubhashya, and Srila Prabhupada is also commenting here. I don't know if we have any name for Srila Prabhupada's commentary, but he's also following both those previous commentaries because he always quotes from them and includes those commentaries in his commentary, in addition to adding additional commentary when necessary. It was very nice.
Thank you. Especially for explaining Bhashya, meaning commentary. Well, then the Nectar of Devotion is actually, isn't it a commentary also? The way Srila Prabhupada wrote it? Nectar
He summarizes it and he summarizes the translation and sometimes gives commentary. Yeah. Can we go to the next verse?
Yes.
Okay. So this verse is part of the initial verses in the first chapter. And just as Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami, he first laid out his plan for addressing and understanding Lord Chaitanya with a variety of verses. And then with the subsequent chapters, he identified one or two or three verses that he further explained in each chapter. So in this chapter 7, where he's describing the Lord Chaitanya in 5 features, also known as pañca-tattva, this verse here is the verse that he's explaining from the beginning chapter of chapter 1. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay. So and this verse is often chanted in the Mangalacharan when Srila Prabhupada would chant. Sometimes he would chant at the beginning of a kirtan all these verses, including this verse, to the previous spiritual masters, parampara, and then to Lord Chaitanya. Initially Lord Chaitanya, he would chant Namo Mahavadanyaya Krishna Prema Pradayate Krishnaya Krishna Chaitanya Namne Gorjishe Namaha, glorifying Lord Chaitanya as Rupa Goswami did, as the most munificent and magnanimous incarnation of Krishna, because he's giving out fully Krishna Prema Pradayate, love of God. He's giving and donating to anyone who will take it, even us, even you and me. And then after that, this verse, pañca-tattvatmakam Krishnam. Can we pañca-tattvatmakam Krishnam bhaktarupa swarupakam bhaktavataram bhaktakyam namami bhakta shaktikam. Parikshit Prabhu, can you chant that verse?
Pañca-tattvatmakam Krishnam bhaktarupa swarupakam bhaktavataram bhaktakyam namami bhakta shaktikam.
Thank you. Very good. Anyone else like to chant if you're in a position where you can? It's a very powerful verse. The root verse of this chapter. Okay. Okay, go ahead. Yes.
Pañca-tattvatmakam Krishnam bhaktarupa swarupakam bhaktavataram bhaktakyam namami bhakta shaktikam.
Yes, very good. Yes. Pañca-tattvatmakam Krishnam bhaktarupa swarupakam bhaktavataram bhaktakyam namami bhakta shaktikam. Okay, the synonyms. Pañca-tattvatmakam. comprehending the 5 transcendental subject matters. Krishna, unto Lord Krishna. Bhaktarupa, the form of a devotee. Svarupakam, in the expansion of a devotee. Bhaktavataram, the incarnation of a devotee. Bhaktakyam, known as a devotee. Namami, I offer my obeisances. Bhakta Shaktikam, the energy of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Translation. Let me offer my obeisances unto Lord Sri Krishna, who has manifested himself in 5 as a devotee, expansion of a devotee, incarnation of a devotee, pure devotee, and devotional energy. Okay. Purport. Sri Nityananda Prabhu is the immediate expansion of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu as his brother. He is the personified spiritual bliss of Sachidananda Vigraha. His body is transcendental and full of ecstasy in devotional service. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is therefore called Bhakta Rupa, the form of a devotee, and Sri Nityananda Prabhu is called Bhakta Svarup, the expansion of a devotee. Sri Advaita Prabhu, the incarnation of a devotee, is Vishnugada and belongs to the same category. There are also different types of bhaktas or devotees. On the platforms of neutrality, servitude, friendship, parenthood, and conjugal love, devotees like Sri Damodar, Sri Gadadhar, and Sri Ramananda are different energies. This confirms the Vedic sutra, Parasya Shaktir Vividha Vishruyate. All these bhakta subjects taken together constitute Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, who is Krishna himself. So, looking back at the verse, let's take a look at the verse if we can. Yeah, up to the Sanskrit. Yeah. So, the Lord Krishna, the original personality of Godhead, is manifesting himself in the pañca-tattva of all 5 of these personalities, because Janmadyasya Yataha, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, everything is coming from him. And in Lord Chaitanya's Lila pastimes, he comes as Bhakta Rupa. He's Krishna, but in the form and color of a devotee. That's Lord Chaitanya, or Gauranga, golden color. Then Nityananda Prabhu, his first expansion, Svarupakam, Bhaktavataram, Avatar, they're all avatars, but particularly Lord Advaita Acharya is considered an avatar and mentioned as an avatar here, because as the representative of Mahavishnu, Mahavishnu is the first avatar expansion that comes in the material world at the beginning of creation. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah. And he's as Mahavishnu, he's appearing, but as Mahavishnu, as a devotee of Lord Chaitanya. Therefore, we went through this in the chapters preceding this. Each chapter went into detail about their identities and how they were all of these 4 after Lord Chaitanya were devotees of Krishna and devotees of Lord Chaitanya. So this Bhakta Avatar, that's Lord Advaita Acharya. Then Bhaktakyam. Who is Bhaktakyam?
Gadadhar.
No.
No?
It's a little
Um,
tricky. This
yeah.
verse is a little tricky because usually you have Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shiva. So it's usually that sequence. Lord
Mm-hmm.
Chaitanya, Lord Nityananda, Advaita Acharya, Gadadhar, and Srivas. But in this case, this Bhaktakyam, see, it's known as a devotee. That's Srivas Thakur, and the
Oh,
Bhakta Shakti is Gadadhar Pandit, and
oh, okay.
others like Ramananda Roy, who is a partial incarnation of Lalita or Vishaka, Ramananda Roy, Sarup Damodar, and others. Yeah, so Bhakti Shakti. So it's the last two are switched around here, and it can fake you out. Does that make sense?
Yeah, but you brought a point now in passing that you mentioned, and I've seen this online, and I don't know why. This is not. It seems like it's just hanging and not resolved. This whole thing about Ramananda Roy, some people are saying he's Vishaka, some people are saying he's Dalita, and you just mentioned Dalita or Vishaka when you were mentioning it.
Yeah,
And
I
I
mean,
just go,
uh,
I don't know why.
one of those very, very elevated associates of, and Shakti associates means they're direct expansions of his pleasure-giving potency, Ladini
Mm,
Shakti.
mm,
So, but one or the other, it's okay. I mean, I don't have to know exactly.
mm. Okay. Well, in this country, they are saying it's Vishaka.
Okay, that's okay.
Ramananda,
That's
at
okay.
least two
And then
person
Swarup
answers.
Damodar is Lalita. Okay,
Yeah, like that.
okay.
Mm,
I mean, you know, those things are very high understandings,
mm,
and you know, important to really first get a real handle on. I'm not this physical body.
yeah.
I'm wallowing in rotting in this material world for not only this lifetime but many lifetimes, trying to be happy by satisfying the senses, but not being at all successful, and flailing. Just in all people here in this material world, including ourselves, are flailing, trying to get some resolution and some lasting happiness, but we're failing absurdly, completely. And so somehow, if we can get the dust of the feet of a pure devotee, a great devotee of our spiritual master, then we have a chance to make progress
Mm,
beyond this material world. And that's where we are. And yes, it's important to know these other things, but relatively, it's not as important
mm.
to
Thank you
understand.
anyway. Yeah.
Yeah,
Right. Hare Krishna.
I'm not trying to discourage anybody from that discussion. Just that relatively, our relative importance is more down to earth where we are.
Yeah, true.
Next, any comments, questions, or reflections on this verse?
First of all, thank you for bringing it up. I wasn't really expecting you would go to the next text because it was so much, technically, so much purport in the previous text. But this really opened up the explanation because part of the purport of 7.5 talked about the different positions of the pañca-tattva. And now this one, which is definitely in the Mangalachana, also described it in greater detail. So this, and I don't have a question, but I'm expressing my appreciation for going to this particular
Yeah,
text.
yeah, I appreciate it.
Yeah.
Your comments are always welcome, Parikshit Prabhu. They're very insightful, and they help keep us on our toes all the time. I appreciate it. Yeah.
Christians mercy, Guru's mercy. Yeah.
So this Pancha Tattva. Incidentally, I think I mentioned before that this chapter of the Chaitanya Charitamrita was published first under Srila Prabhupada's instruction to understand the Pancha-tattva. So before the whole series of Chaitanya Charitamrita was published, this particular chapter was published in a small book, and we were distributing it on Sankirtan to understand Lord Chaitanya, the Pancha-tattva. So it reminds me, or it's consistent with, if you'll find in this Adi Lila, many purports in the Adi Lila, Srila Prabhupada repeatedly makes a point that to offer proper respect to Lord Chaitanya, you must chant the full pañca-tattva mantra. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaur Bhaktivinoda. He writes that in purports about 9 times that to give proper respect to the pañca-tattva, you have to chant to Lord Chaitanya. To Lord Chaitanya, you have to chant the full pañca-tattva Mahamantra, which is quite interesting. Sometimes, of course, devotees make a shortcut, but Prabhupada emphasized this chanting of the full pañca-tattva Mahamantra, which includes all these 5 personalities.
I have a question.
Yeah.
So, when Srila Prabhupada was there in the younger years, when he asked devotees to chant, yes, they were to chant the pañca-tattva mantra and then the Hare Krishna mantra. At the end of each round of japa, what did Srila Prabhupada ask devotees to do? To repeat the pañca-tattva mantra before going to the next round? Is that what everybody was doing at the time?
That's a very interesting question. As you perhaps know, in Jayadvaita Maharaj's book, he writes that Srila Prabhupada did not instruct us to chant the pañca-tattva Mahamantra between rounds. He says that. And so he sent me a copy of his book to review, to give comments before he published it. So I read that, and I had been in the temple, and there was there are many recordings of Srila Prabhupada chanting japa that devotees listen to while they're chanting japa, japa tapes. So in one of them, Srila Prabhupada, it seems, chants Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaur Bhaktivinoda between rounds. Seems to me. So I wrote that to him. And he wrote me back. He said, interestingly, that Sri Krishna Chaitanya was dubbed in to that japa tape.
No kidding.
Follow?
Yeah.
Oh, so the japa tape is being doctored. Oh, well, I didn't know that. So anyway, that means that Jayadvaita Maharaj is generally correct. But further, he says that chanting Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaur Bhaktivinoda before chanting Hare Krishna only applies to kirtan. That's what he says in his book. But in the purports where Srila Prabhupada says chant this in order to be free from offenses to chanting the holy name, the Hare Krishna mantra, chant this Sri Krishna Chaitanya and Prabhu Nityananda before chanting Hare Krishna. It never says it there. Srila Prabhupada never makes the distinction. Oh, this should only be done before Hare Krishna in kirtan, but not in japa. He never says that. So did you follow that?
Yeah, I hadn't even heard about that. It was supposed to be chanted just for kirtan. My knowledge was always that we chant that before japa.
Yeah. So I mean,
we do it in kirtan?
I don't know of any evidence that Srila Prabhupada said to chant it before chanting Hare Krishna in japa, although you could take the instruction that's in the purport, because it doesn't differentiate between japa and kirtan, to be that. And when in the early days, yes, we didn't chant Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda between rounds. And like, I mean, we're talking, I was not a real early. There was like early days was 66, 67. I joined
Yeah.
in 1971, but even in 1971, it wasn't being done. No, but it became more popular after the Chaitanya Charitamrita was published, probably because of those purports. You follow?
Yeah.
So, you know, what you can make your own conclusion from it. I know what Jayadvaita Maharaj says, and I respect Jayadvaita Maharaj. I don't always agree 100% with what he says, but I respect him as a very learned and respectable devotee. So that's my comment. Is that okay?
Yes, yes, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, I've
Anyway,
even thought there are some people who have not only chanted the pañca-tattva mantra between rounds, but they've chanted it 3 times between rounds.
yeah, these days. Yeah.
All of these. Anyway, it doesn't hurt because the mantra itself is potent, I guess. So we'll leave it like that.
So we don't see Srila Prabhupada ever. We don't have an example of him doing it. If it's true that, and it sounds, I went back and listened to the tape, the Japa tape, and it does sound like it's been dubbed in the Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda when Srila Prabhupada finishes around. Okay, so it does. So we don't have any example of Srila Prabhupada doing it, but you could take it in the purport. You may take it. I'm not saying you must, but you may take it that in the purport he doesn't differentiate between japa and kirtan with the chanting of Sri Krishna Chaitanya, Prabhu Nityananda, Shri Advaita Gadadhar, Srivasadi Gaur Bhaktivinoda before chanting Hare Krishna. So anyway, these might
Just one more
seem,
comment.
yeah. Go ahead.
Technically, though, if you want to find out if something has been dubbed in, listen to the background sound. If the background sound it's exactly the same as your ear can pick up, it's definitely dubbed in. It's
Okay,
definitely
yeah.
dubbed
I
in.
haven't
You
taken
can
to
find
that
out.
extent. I haven't taken to that extent. Yeah.
Okay.
And these things might seem like really, really picayune little tiny details. Okay. But we're all of us are hoping to make progress in chanting Hare Krishna because that's our method to make progress in spiritual life. The main aspect of making progress, the main potency of making progress is to chant the holy names of the Lord, following the great authorities and the great authority we're following is Srila Prabhupada. So and Srila Prabhupada gives us the hint and the direction that by chanting the pañca-tattva Mahamantra, it clears your offenses.
Yeah.
Part of the reason we're not making progress is because of our offenses to the chanting of the holy name. So it is even though it might seem like it's a small issue, it is a big issue because well, how are we going to get free from offenses? It's just we need the mercy of Lord Chaitanya, Lord Chaitanya, Prabhu Nityananda. Yeah. Sometimes it's said, I don't know, I heard it said in a class that 90% of a person's progress is from chanting japa. Have you ever heard that?
No.
Yeah. I didn't think that was accurate though, because we Lord Chaitanya put his emphasis and it's in the Srimad Bhagavatam, the emphasis is on Sankirtan, which means together.
Yeah.
Japa is important. Not that it's not important, of course, very, very important, but even more important is chanting together, Sankirtan, chanting fully with other devotees. That's even more important, Sankirtan. So anyway.
So one thing I know about chanting together is that the tendency for the mind to roam in Sankirtan is practically nil.
Yes, a
In
good point. Good point. Good point.
It's practically
Whereas
nil.
when you're chanting japa, then it's a more can be a more of a struggle
Mm.
because yeah. But when there's some devotees chanting and there's some good instrumentation and there's enthusiasm, it becomes
Yeah.
much more tangible to chant with great feeling and attention. Yes, thank you.
Yeah.
That was a great comment. Great
Hare
comment.
Krishna. Very really powerful. Okay. Now, one point about this, I'm still staying on this, the pañca-tattva. Well, this verse about pañca-tattva, so why not? My concern is, so Srila Prabhupada did, that's why I asked the question in that time when Srila Prabhupada was around, what was done as far as when or how many times and when to chant the Hare Krishna, I mean the pañca-tattva mantra. Because what's going on now is if we kind of, okay, this is allowed and it's all right, let's put it in, let's put it in. Next thing you know, people will stretch different other conditions, and next thing we know, we really have deviated from what Srila Prabhupada asked us to do. And so while we may look at a situation, okay, we're chanting Panchatattva 3 times between rounds, and it's all good because the mantra itself is so potent. But it's also a way to do things. It's a procedure to do things. And knowing Maya and my own life, how Maya can be so crafty everywhere if we just let up a little bit. Next thing you know, we're doing something quite different. And that's why I asked the question in the time, when Silpa was around, what really was done.
Yes, that's
Yeah.
very astute observation and comment, Parikshit Prabhu. So when I mentioned that chanting of the Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda, the Pañca-tattva Mahamantra, began to occur, at least in my experience, after the publication of the Chaitanya Charitamrita. That was when Srila Prabhupada was still around. In 1974, 75 is when the Chaitanya Charitamrita was first published. So I don't know of any case where Srila Prabhupada said, don't do it. No.
Okay.
But at the same time, Jayadvaita Maharaj makes the point that Prabhupada didn't necessarily specifically instruct it, at least in person to person, although one could make an argument that he did in these purports, because no differentiations are made between kirtan and japa there.
Okay.
But anyway, and then how many times the Sri Krishna the Pañca-tattva Mahamantra should be chanted? As you perhaps know, in Jayadvaita Maharaj's book, he recommends 3 times. Okay. Although and he doesn't quote Srila Prabhupada directly. In fact, he's quoting Harikesh, who's supposedly quoting Srila Prabhupada. So it's a secondhand quote, not a direct quote. So then I looked at the there's 31 recordings of Srila Prabhupada where he chants Hare Krishna somewhere in the kirtan on the prabhupadvani.org. So I looked at how many times Srila Prabhupada chanted the Pañca-tattva Mahamantra before he chanted Hare Krishna in kirtan. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So sometimes he chanted it once. Sometimes he chanted it 3 times.
That's true.
sometimes 5 times, up to 7 times. And at least a couple of places he chanted the Pañca-tattva Mahamantra 7 times. So in my own thought, I don't take it as like, it's like 3 is like you got to do it 3 times, not less, not more, but about 3, a little more than 3, a little less. It's okay. It's okay. Does that make sense?
Yeah, well,
like,
incidentally, this morning, the video, the audio that I pulled up before you started this,
yes.
he was chanting that, the Pañca-tattva mantra, and he chanted 3 times, Shiva.
Yes,
before
yes,
he went
yes.
he went
Yes.
to Hare Krishna, yeah. But he was singing that.
Yes.
So
like I said, it is true that Srila Prabhupada sometimes chanted it many more times than 3, but usually, 3, 4, 5, something like that. Sometimes once at a kirtan. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Anyway, no problem. The mantra is potent. So
yes.
I'm talking about it, Pañca-tattva.
We got to get the mercy of Lord Chaitanya to get the mercy of Krishna, and we got to get the mercy of Lord Chaitanya. We need the mercy of Srila Prabhupada. Incidentally, in there's a nice description by my godbrother Madhusudan Prabhu, who was in New York in 1967, and he said that the devotees began chanting, "Hey Krishna Govinda Hari Murari He Nata Narayana Vasudeva And Prabhupada heard it. He was there. Prabhupada heard it. And he called him and he said, what are you chanting this for? He said, well, we saw it in your book. He said, no, it's a, if you want another mantra to chant, I'll give you another mantra to chant. And according to Madhusudan, that's when he introduced Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya, Bhaja Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda. So even although he himself chanted it in the Happening album, which was before that, still the devotees in general weren't chanting that in kirtan until 1967.
Can I ask another question?
Of course.
This is from what you just said about the pañca-tattva again. When you were describing when people were saying, Hey Krishna Govinda Hari Murari and Sri Prabhupada gave the pañca-tattva. We sing Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya, but I have heard Sri Prabhupada disciples repeat after him Bhaja Shri Krishna Chaitanya.
Yeah.
Why the difference Bhaja and Jaya?
So in the early part of ISKCON, and the soundtrack you played this morning, he was singing and the devotees were saying Bhaja Shri Krishna Chaitanya.
Yeah.
So that was the mantra we were chanting for several years until the Chaitanya Charitamrita came out. And at that time, Srila Prabhupada gave a notice that he said he wanted to change it because Bhaja Shri Krishna, he said Bhaja was used primarily by the Sahajiyas. And he wanted to differentiate the ISKCON from the Sahajiya Sampradaya. So he said at that time, either Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya or just Shri Krishna Chaitanya, Prabhu Nityananda. So that was around 1975 is when that happened. So that was, and it became quite quickly done. After a short time, nobody chanted Bhaja Shri Krishna anymore, even though for 4 years or for 8 years up till that time, devotees were chanting Bhaja.
Okay. Thank you very much. These are all little subtle things that I've heard. Now it makes sense to me why, and the history behind it too. Thank you very much. Okay, devotees, I don't want to monopolize asking questions. If you have questions or comments, please unmute yourself too and ask. We are on the top of the hour now, but any final questions or comments? If not, then thank you very much.
Thank you.
It's wonderful to discuss this whole pañca-tattva mantra. Actually, it's very, very calming it touched my heart literally, because of the mantra and its own potency and the things about it. So you commented. Thank you very much. Those of us that were not there when Sri Prabhupada was around, it makes a big difference in how we see things and why things are the way they are now. So we do the right thing. Hare Krishna. Thank you again for the class.
Thank you.
Prabhupada ki jai. Thank you again, dear buddies. Hare Krishna. Jai.